بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone to the Rawda Institute. It's my honor to welcome you. I'm the director of this institute, alhamdulillah, and it's our great honor to have Anse Tamara with us today, Anse Tamara Gray. She is a scholar, she is a leader, she is an author, alhamdulillah, she's a translator, and she's a mentor, alhamdulillah, to so many people, including me, alhamdulillah. So our topic tonight, we've been talking earlier about the important ways that we need to translate the message and the knowledge and the spirit of this beautiful path to God, Islam, into our context in ways that make other people feel welcome, in ways that make our youth feel welcome, in ways that will be accessible to the next generation. And we've talked about some of the very important things that Anse Tamara has been doing and is doing to make that possible. And I think that one of the most radical things that she talked about and that she's doing is to bring back the concept of joy. And she talks about that in her book, recognizing that too many people are practicing this way of life without joy, without a sense of happiness. And so the topic tonight is the path to inner joy. And it's our honor to have Anse Tamara guide us in this. Welcome to all of you. We'll have time for questions, inshallah, at the end.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much for having me in this beautiful space. I've been here since now about 2 o'clock, I think, right? And it's just a wonderful place of prayer and worship and community and fellowship and food and all sorts of joyful things. So, alhamdulillah, I'm really happy to be here. The topic, the road to joy, is that what the topic is, Shahna? Is that what you said? The road to joy? The path to inner joy is, it sounds a little bit trite, I think, sometimes if we say that we want to talk about inner joy, and I want to underline that I am not talking about something that's easy or shallow or trite, if you will. I'm not talking about short-lived highs, whether they're from artificial or actual or real-life experiences. I'm talking about something that was represented in the feelings of the Prophet ﷺ when he was returning from Silat al-Hudaybiyah, which was a very painful experience. He had gone with his companions to perform Umrah, and he was kept out of the sacred precinct, the sacred Masjid al-Haram. And not only was he kept out, you have to understand that they went without the weapons of war. And so they were standing there, not being allowed in and expecting to be attacked at any moment. The Prophet ﷺ took another bay'ah. So we've all heard of bay'at al-Aqaba, the first and the second, bay'at al-Nisa. We've heard of these and we talk about them a lot. But here, at this moment, the Prophet ﷺ took a third bay'ah, a third oath, a third commitment, where he asked his companions to commit to standing with him, even if now they are suddenly attacked without any defensive weapons, and yet to stand together and to stand with Islam and with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyway, so it was really serious. And then we know that, of course, alhamdulillah, in the end they did it. And he had sent Uthman radiallahu an inside of Mecca to negotiate. He was gone for so long that the reason he brought the Muslims together for this third bay'ah was because he feared that he had been killed. So there was fear and grief and anxiety, all of these sort of popular words that we toss around today. And then when they came out to make an agreement, and this agreement is being written, Ali radiallahu an is appointed to write it, and he writes Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and the Meccan Qurayshi representative says, who is this ar-Rahman? Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Who is this ar-Rahman? This is a name that the Arabs didn't know for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so first he removes this, and then it said, this is an agreement between and Rasulullah. And they said, if we thought you were Rasulullah, we wouldn't be having this treaty anyway. Erase it. And Ali said, I won't. So the Prophet ﷺ said, where is it? And he himself removed it. So we know these stories, but I want to emphasize to you there was the real sort of sense of difficulty and despair, to such a degree that Umar radiallahu anhu, when they made the agreement, he was really upset. Aren't we in the right? What's going on here? Aren't we in the right? What happened? And he spent the rest of his life making tawbah for this challenge to the Prophet ﷺ, but it represents his emotion at the time, his sense of despair, maybe. It's a strong word. And as the Prophet ﷺ is leaving this situation where after the treaty had been signed and this really unjust agreement where if someone leaves Mecca, escapes from Mecca to go to the Muslims, they have to be sent back. But if someone from the Muslims goes to Mecca, they can stay. Right at that point, who escaped from his shackles and walked into the camp where they were, away from Mecca, and into the camp, asking to be taken in by the Muslims in safety and to be taken back to Medina? Abu Jandal. No? Abu Nasir? No, Abu Jandal. Abu somebody. And the Prophet ﷺ, imagine, like he's seeing his companion, and make no mistake, he loved his companions, and he recognized that their long-term imprisonment in Mecca was a challenge to their faith. And so here he had already signed this agreement, and so he had to send him back. There are layers of pain, there are layers of difficulty in this moment. And as he is returning back to Medina, he and the companions are returning back to Medina, what is the surah that was revealed? Does anyone know? Not you. You've heard me talk about this. Does anybody know? في سورة الفتح إن فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا. And the Prophet ﷺ, verily we have, well, very sort of a literal open for you a clear opening. All of this trouble, all of this failure, I hesitate to use the word, but that's how we would perceive it if it happened to us. All of this pushback, all of this hardship, all of this fear, all of this struggle, all of this place of weakness. And this was a fatah. This was a victory. And the Prophet ﷺ went with glowing eyes and a joyful face to Umar radiallahu anhu to show him that indeed what had happened, this was a fatah. This was a moment of joy. So this is the joy that I'm talking about. It's the joy that comes because we understand that even in the middle of our hardship, in the middle of hard stuff, in the middle of dunya and society and relationships and the human nafs, and shaitan and illness and all the stuff of this world, really. That in the middle of all of that, everything from Allah is good. And that is a very elevated thing to say. It's an easy thing to say. It's a very different thing to actually live. To live everything from Allah is good. To live at that point of joy where we are able to understand and see that even in the place of hardship, in the space of hardship, there can be the space of joy. And I think there's all sorts of ways that people live Islam. And one of the ways that people live Islam is a very stubborn, tenacious soldiering through life that is painful and sad, really. And it's often done because somewhere early on, there was a recognition of truth. And the joy that comes from recognizing truth is an undeniable experience. And so those who can hold on to that memory and keep walking with it are often willing to really walk through great difficulties. The French-Canadian sisters earlier, are you still here? The translators? They spoke to the idea that of this real hardship in the 80s of converting, and the halal and haram discourse, and the everything you're doing is wrong discourse, and if you're married to a Moroccan, you got to be a Moroccan. If you're married to an Egyptian, you got to be Egyptian. If you're married to a Syrian, you got to be Syrian, or else, ma fi kon din, you don't really have religion. And that real difficulty. And if you think about that and think that people survived that and held on to their faith, that shows true stubbornness, or we should say diligence, and true holding on to the truth that they saw even in the midst of the hardship that they're living. Alhamdulillah, they're able to find this beautiful space and something fresh and connected to our true inheritance from the Prophet ﷺ, so that they could correct that, hopefully the points of pain that they referred to earlier. So having those experiences is very important on this trip to inner joy. One of the illnesses that I see today is that we, in our new sort of maybe secular age, I'm not really sure, but in this new age, this place that we're in, I find a lot of people who do experience spiritual joy, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fair, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open doors for those who seek Him. We know this, but that we deny those experiences. No, that didn't really happen. I'm not really sure. Oh, couldn't have been. Or we decide not to remember the experience of spirituality, the experience of connection, because we've walked away from it for too long, and we are now stuck in the sandbox of dunya and all the other things that we get stuck in. And this is one of the reasons that we're a religion of habit and ritual. Because we have to, if you want to call yourself a practicing Muslim, you have to pray 5 times a day. So in these 5 times a day, this repetitive prayer every single day, there is a habit. And in that habit, there's hope of reaching that space of experience again. And our experiences are real, and we need to take them seriously and understand them. This morning we were talking, when we were still in Ottawa, we had a little after Fajr lesson, and I was talking about the hadith Qudsi, where this is a fascinating hadith to me, and it really, for a long time, I've sort of thought about it, and in my road of thinking about joy, actually, if I can just back up a minute, when I moved to the United States in 2012, I left Syria, I was leaving for 5 months, like so many other Syrians. I was leaving for 5 months so that I could, my sister was having a baby, and I was going to, it was her first child, she was 37 years old, and so she wanted me to be with her. I'm the big sister. And so I thought, okay, you know what, this is a good opportunity. Things are heating up in Sham. I'd been in the war for a whole year. And I thought, oh, maybe it's a good idea. I'll take a long vacation, and then I'll come back. Those 5 months I'm still in the 5 months right now, 2018. But anyway, so what happened is I left Syria. There's very complicated pieces of the story, which I'm just going to leave out because it's not that important. But I left Syria, I got to the United States, and like a week later, it was very clear that I wasn't going to be able to go back. And so I was in the United States with half a suitcase of things for me and half a suitcase of things for other people, because that's what you do when you travel overseas, right? And there I was, and I rented a house next door to my brother in West St. Paul, and my father's wife started buying me stuff for the house, and my brother, who owns a restaurant, dumped all of his mismatched silverware in my kitchen. He was so happy to get rid of it. And now I need to get rid of it. But alhamdulillah. And so there I was, and I never planned to be in America. I mean, I left the United States in 1992, I think. I'm not sure, my husband knows that date exactly, but in the 92, I think it's 92. It was either the end of 92 or the beginning of 93. And I was done. Like, I wasn't going back. I had no intention of going back to the United States. And to visit, sure, be a good Muslim, visit my parents. But to live, abadan, not at all. And I had made an agreement, like I had the talk with my in-laws and told them where I want to be buried. And this is like a hard talk to have with Arab in-laws because they don't want to talk about it. A'udhu billah, Allah yatawwal amrak. No, we don't want to talk about it. I'm like, just give me 3 minutes. I promise I'll be done. And subhanallah. And so like I was not, and the war started and I was like, I'm here. And I was like challenging the world, I'm here. But I guess I wasn't. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent me back to the United States. And so here I was, it was July. And I had this tour that's another story, but we did this tour because my students were like, oh, yay, Anse, you're here. And it's going to be a short time, so let's do a really quick tour around the United States of America and go to 69 cities in Ramadan and give these talks. And then after that, you can go back to Syria. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. But I thought it was a good idea. And so I did it. And so all during that time, I'm still thinking I'm going back to Syria, even though I knew I wasn't, because I had already rented the house. But in my head, I'm like, yalla, yalla. And then September came, and I registered my son in public school. He was in grade 10 at the time. I'm like, yalla, just this year. We'll finish school, and then we'll go back. Well, that year tested my my philosophy, or my belief that being a person of belief means that you live a life of joy. That was a test for me. And all that year I was writing joy jots. I used to write every week. I would write an essay about life and just sort of what was going on around me and what I was learning and things like that. And then I wrote the book, and then in June we decided to put it together, and I dumped half of them and had to rewrite the essays. And the process of writing a book is another story we'll talk about. There's something up there, we're going to talk about that. But the part of it that I want to tell you is that then like in September, October of the next year, I don't know when it was, maybe it was a whole year later, a high school friend of mine who I hadn't seen for 33 years called me or contacted me on Facebook and said, I'm in Minnesota and I want to come and see you. Okay, so she came to Daybreak, and she had this really sad life. 3 of her sisters had died, her mother had died, and the other sister now had the same disease that they had all died from, and she didn't have children. She had adopted a child who now was rejecting her and wanted all this stuff, just lots of stuff. She's not a Muslim. And we had this long conversation, then she said, okay, she's leaving. She said, I want to buy your book. I was like, you do? Yeah, she said, yeah, you wrote a book about grief. I said, no. I wrote a book about joy. She said, you did? That's so weird. I was sure you wrote a book about grief. I said, no, you're really mistaken. I wrote a book about joy. And she said, oh, and she was all embarrassed. And she said, well, I'll buy that anyway, but she didn't really want it. And I let her buy it. I don't think I even gave it to her. Maybe I did. I hope I did. And she left. And it took me like 3 days, but I realized that she was right. It is a book that was written in my year of grief, white knuckling it through really this real grief about Syria and my own life, what had happened to the life that I had planned for myself. And finding a way to hold on to that joy that I believed and believe is a necessary part of what it means to be a believing person. And so there was a point I was making. Does anybody remember where I was before I went on that little, what was I going to say? Huh? The hadith, yeah, thank you. Okay. So, good job. So I had this whole year of just like working through my grief by just this book and these things I was doing, and calling the book Joy Jots, because in the end it was seeking that joy that is part of being a believing woman. And all during that time, there's this hadith that's in my head, because I feel like it's this really interesting formula for what it means to grow in this faith, to grow along this path, because we have a very clearly set out growing mechanism, if you will, which is the road of Islam to Iman to Ihsan. And Islam is this level of basic, I believe in God, there's the prayers and the zakat, and I'm going to fast Ramadan. And it's really about outward living a faith that then hopefully we're moving forward as we grow in actual aqidah, or faith and belief, which is that second level of Iman. Iman is a deepening, and where our belief becomes really real, and we really begin to live it in ways that's where the joy begins to grow. Because when you have Iman inside of you, then you get joy from the very act of living as a Muslim and as a mu'mina. And from there, you move into ihsan, which is this caring and carrying the world around you toward those places of joy and belief. Well, that's easy to say, but it sounds really difficult. So this hadith always, throughout all these years, has made me really feel like it's actually a very simple formula that we make very complicated. And the hadith it begins with من عاد لي وليا قد أذنته بالحرب, which is who is an enemy, if you will. There's a better word than that. Who stands against my friend. I have declared war upon him. In 2010, my very good friend Anse Tamara, who we translated the book together, her uncle died. And her uncle was of the awliya. He was well-known sheikh, mashallah, of the awliya. He wrote these incredible books, and he was well-known in Sham and well-loved in Sham. And I went to see her because he had died. And we were talking about that year, 2010. And so many of the awliya of Sham died in that year. And I remember we were talking to each other, and I said, I don't know, it's getting to be that I feel like the country's no longer protected by the presence of those awliya. And that's related to the first part of this hadith. Because if we are a community of awliya, then we have really nothing to worry about. If we are a community of awliya, then all we have to do is just live. And live as the awliya, mind you. But just live our lives, and our communities will be protected. Our families, there will be protection. I'm not saying life will be perfect. The life of the Prophet ﷺ was not perfect, so we should not seek perfection. That's not coming, and it's not happening. But there's a protection from that which is the enemy of Islam, the enemy of life, the real places of pain and harm that come to community, that come to ourselves. But the hadith, the fascinating part of this hadith is that then it gives us this blueprint of how to become of those awliya that if someone stands, if there's an enemy, if someone stands really against the awliya, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself will declare war against them. And so what is this blueprint? What is this blueprint that is here? It's so simple. It's so simple. It's the hadith that you all know because it's a very famous one. But we usually, when we quote it, we leave out that first part. And it is, whoever wants to, yeah, but I'll do it in English. Hang on, I want to do it in English. Who wishes to come near to me, let him begin with his, and this is not a very literal translation, but let him begin with his farad, with the farad, and then start with nawafil, those the things that are extra. That's it. Then, until he becomes such that God becomes the eyes with which he sees with, the ears with which he hears with, the hand with which he does things with, the feet which he walks with. This is like a mind-blowing hadith. Because if you think about it, what do you mean just farad and nawafil? I know lots of people who do farad and nawafil. So, are we all awliya? And really, it's a simple formula. But it starts with understanding what farad and nawafil are and how they are the key to the joy in our lives. They are the key to our inner joy. Because people will always disappoint us. I promise you that. I used to, when I first, I don't know if you remember this, but I used to, especially when the young 19-year-olds came to Sham, my favorite thing to say to them was, look at my face. Remember this face. Because they were 19 and they were like, oh, mashallah, the world is so full of wonderful people and all this stuff. So everyone will always disappoint you. So on the day that you realize that the human being will always disappoint you, I want you to remember my face. I was the one who told you this. But because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who will never disappoint us. But the human being will always disappoint us. And sometimes the human being disappoints us because we're in the wrong. I mean, sometimes we're disappointed in people because we actually don't know what's to expect, or we're making that mistake. But it doesn't matter because we are disappointed. And so the only one, La ilaha illahu, who will never disappoint us is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that is that place of true inner joy when we really know that. And the way to get to that place is through first our farad, our obligations. If I know that anyone here, I know this for a fact, anyone here who is a regular prayer, if you pray on a regular basis, and one day you miss a farad prayer, I know that you feel like a piece of sawdust, like wood that has splinters on it, like wood that your day is dull and you can't hear anything in the same way, and you feel heavy. You can't wait to go to bed and wake up the next day and start over. Yeah, of course, because the farad prayer affects how you are. I have a friend who, like 15 years ago, she missed Fajr once. Actually, this is more than that because it's before I moved to Syria, so this is about 25 years ago. And even more. Anyway, whatever. Like 25 years ago, she missed Fajr, one day in the year. And the year was over. She lives in the United States, and she went to visit her teacher, our teacher, in Damascus. And she walked into the room, and our teacher said to her, since when have we become of those who miss Fajr? She missed it once in the year. What does that tell you? It tells you that the effect of missing that prayer on her face, on her hal, on who she was palpable to someone who lived in that world of where those things can be felt. So if we're not feeling that, it's because we're missing it too often. If we're living a life where a Fajr is missed in October, and maybe one in December, another one in January, we haven't yet reached that place where we are people of farad prayer. If worse than that, if we're missing Isha or Dhuhr or Asr or Maghrib, one time I was asked to give a class in California. I probably shouldn't have said where, but anyway, I was asked to give a class in a state in the United States, to a group of young women, and I was supposed to talk to them about something else, and I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't talk about it. And finally, I had like a PowerPoint and everything. I was like really organized, alhamdulillah. And instead, I just closed my computer and I just started talking about Fajr prayer and like not missing prayers and all of this. And I was really embarrassed because I thought, oh my God, these guys are they're going to be like, what is wrong with this Anse who comes, we're advanced. Why is she talking to us about this? And when I finished, in the room, there was only one person who did not miss a fard prayer on a regular basis. And these were all people who were these are people that were trying, like they're going to the mosque and this and that. We have an epidemic in our community of missed fard. It's an epidemic where we're missing Fajr and we're missing Isha. In the summer we miss Isha and the rest of the year we miss Fajr. And people go to work often miss Dhuhr or Maghrib or Asr. And these prayers, we have to understand, there is a formula. It's a simple formula. Do we want joy? Do we want to walk on the path of the awliya? We have to begin with our fard prayers. And if you know how it feels to miss one on one day, imagine how you would feel if you didn't. Imagine if you spent 5 years not missing a single fard prayer. 5 years, where would you be? Think about that. What would that mean? 5 years without missing a single fard prayer. And of course, for women, in the whole cycle of life, you have in every month a time when you're not praying, not because it's sin, ma fi zamb, there's no sin, but there's a terrible habit amongst women of deciding that this is vacation time. Oh, I'm on vacation. And so what does that mean? I'm in ghafla? Oh, hello, I'm in heedless week. This is the week that I don't remember Allah. Astaghfirullah al-azim. And I don't wake up anymore. And I don't think about my life as the ritual of my life as a Muslim woman. If you add up, if a woman in her normal sort of life cycle, if you add up the days that she isn't praying, in those, like if she's sort of between like say 13 and 50, and you add up those days in like sort of a week every month, you end up with 10 years of your life that if you've been on vacation, that you're in ghafla, heedlessness. So this is actually quite serious. We have to think about the fact that this is a religion that has this beautiful thing called salah, but it's not our only prayer in the English word. We have dua and we have dhikr. And the purpose of salah is dhikr, and the purpose of siyam is dhikr, and the purpose of hajj is dhikr. This is the Quran. لِذِكْرِ, for the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if those are the purposes, then we can fulfill the purpose anytime in forcing ourselves to sit, and especially in the weeks that we're not doing salah, to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during that time, and to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua during that time, to become of those who do istighfar in the nights, who wake up before Fajr and do istighfar in the nights. There's nothing that says you have to have wudu to do that. And so all of that is in that place of the journey to inner joy. When we can become people whose fard prayer is absolutely regular. So we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with 10, 20, 30 years of fard prayer prayed on time. And hey, this is the Muslim ummah. Where we are today, what do you think? I want you to think about this question. What do you think is the percentage of Muslims who pray all their prayers without missing at least one, let's say in a month? Or in, let's say 3 months, at least one in 3 months. What do you think is the percentage? Think about it, friend. Tell your neighbor what you think the percentage is. What do you think? Tell your neighbor. Okay, so what is it? What did you get? Who, raise your hand if you and or your neighbor thought it was above 50%. So more than 50%, okay, mashallah. How about below 20%? 10%, 10, below 10? Yeah. That's scary. That this is what we think, that in our ummah of 1 billion Muslims, that only 10% of us, and some of you may have had, I agree with those low numbers in my own experience with people, that only 10% of Muslims around the world, and maybe fewer, are actually praying their prayers all the time without missing any fard. No wonder we are in the state we are in today. No wonder. Personally and as an ummah. And the formula is simple, but we have to hold on to the formula. When I was young, I wrote about this in Georgia, so if you've read it, you already heard this story, but that's okay, I'll tell it again. When I was young, I was actually just visiting Syria, I think, and I was walking along the road one day and I was having one of these moments, where I thought I understood the universe. And I said to my friend, MashaAllah, I understand now. 1 + 1, it doesn't always equal 2. And she said, yeah, mashallah, subhanallah, that's so true. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, mashallah. Deep stuff, yeah. And I went to class that day. It was a Sira class, actually, with the one who wrote this book. And she said, how are you, Tamara? She actually calls me Tamra, like the date. And I said, Alhamdulillah, Anse. Today, I should have just kept my mouth shut. Today, I understand, I get it. I get it. She said, oh, mashallah. I get it. 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. And if you knew her, you would know how really foolish I was to say something like that. She's very serious. And yeah, she said, what are you talking about? 1 + 1 always equals 2, but you have to have 1 and 1. You don't have the ones. Okay. But of course, how old was I? I don't know. 21 maybe? I don't know. I don't know, 20. Maybe I was even younger. I was probably 21, 22, 20, maybe even 23. Oh my goodness. But that's what it is. Like, we all want to reach, we want those feelings, right? But if we're not praying our fard prayers, then we don't have 1 and 1. And we're not going to find 2. We're calling on Allah, Ya Allah, give me. Ya Allah, I want this. Ya Allah, I want that. Ya Allah, I want to feel again. Ya Allah, why do I have this emptiness? I'm doing everything for you. Astaghfirullah azim. And if for basic fard prayers, we're missing them. Missing them. Not every day, but missing them. There's a serious question there around what's going on in the rest of our life. So we have this is part of the fard that we need to find that journey to inner joy. But there's another piece, which is the duties of our lives. There's the fard between us and Allah, and there's the fard between us and ourselves, and there's the fard between us and the people around us. And those things change in our lives. But when we're not, and they're duties to be sure, but it's a fard. And if we ignore it thinking we're better, there's so sometimes on this path, people are like, oh, I don't, so who asked me, where's Sister Fatima? She said, I heard you don't sleep. People love to say this about me. Oh, Anse, you just don't sleep, mashallah. I mean, of course I sleep. Did the Prophet ﷺ sleep? Have I, a'udhu billah, astaghfirullah. What are we talking about? Of course I sleep. And in fact, when I don't sleep, if I'm whatever, I have lots going on and this and that, and I don't sleep, I get sick, like everybody else, right? I mean, you have to sleep. And maybe I don't sleep as much as some other people. Maybe I certainly don't believe in the 8 hours a night. I think that's a really funny joke. Yeah, I mean, I want you to just think for a minute about sleep studies, okay? Who are the subjects of sleep studies? Hello, people who sin. I mean, are they Muslims who pray and like they signed a contract that they're not people of like zina and adultery and alcohol and all these other things? Like sin makes you heavy to the bed. Sin makes you like a bear in the winter. This is Canada. That's a good metaphor. Sin makes you like a heavy log in the bed, dead to the world. You're asleep and you can't wake up. Sin does that. And so they have all these sleep studies and all these people who are living lives of sin. I mean, they're oblivious to it, but that's how they're living. So of course they need at least 8 hours of sleep. How could they serve? Of course, they have to sleep it off. But a Muslim, and we read stories of our early ancestors and the little sleep that they needed. These are because they become light upon the earth. They still need to sleep, okay? All human beings need to sleep. But they don't need to sleep 8, 10, 9, 12 hours a night. A'udhu billah. There comes a point where you sleep so much that it becomes negative sleep. Like you wake up kind of sick from all that sleep. And especially if the sleep includes missing prayers, that's a whole nother mess. But the obligation to the self, there is an obligation to the self, to caring for the self, to be sure. But within that obligation is the beautiful balance of, yes, I need to sleep, but no, I don't need to sleep 15 hours a night or whatever it is whatever is the new, Google magazine thing that human beings have to sleep. I think it's still 8 hours. It's been 8 hours for a long time. Yeah, unless you're a teenager, then they allow for 12. The spirit, anyway, that's another. But anyway, so our farad obligations to ourselves and our farad obligations to our families and our farad obligations to our friends and to our homes and to our cars and to all the things around us Allah has put in front of us to care for are very important. We have to take care of those things. And that's all part of that farad. And once we've taken care of those things, then we get to start on this beautiful path of nawafil. And it's just like if I give you a cake, well, I don't know, this is at least how I see things. If I give you a cake, my husband would not like this metaphor because he likes plain cake. He doesn't like frosting or fruit or nuts or anything. So if that's you, just give me a minute because you're not going to like this metaphor. But I like my cake with nuts on it, cream cheese frosting, maybe if it's a lemon cake, I want it to be really a lemon cake. If it's a chocolate cake, I want pecans with it, maybe some fudge frosting, some salted caramel on top, right? You can go like this if you agree, all right? If you don't agree, just be patient with my metaphor. So, like, if you're doing your farad, like, alhamdulillah, you're having cake, like, that's good. Like, here's the cake. You've got cake. You've got plain white cake with nothing on it, and nothing in it, and even they forgot to put the vanilla in. It's an egg cake with sugar. But once you start your nawafil, you're adding flavor and texture and sweetness and height and beauty. And it gets wider and bigger and it's decorated and it becomes something very, very beautiful with edible flowers and beautiful decorations and layers, and then not only layers, tiers, and all the different parts of what makes really, really fancy designer cakes incredibly beautiful and incredibly something that you really want to eat. And this is how the awliya have been throughout our history. People that you really want to eat. You just want to get close and be there because they have so much to offer. They're not this plain old cake. They've got nuts and no raisins, though. I don't put raisins in mine. But they've got nuts and whatever the other things are. Maybe they have mango and fruit in the middle and I don't know what on top, edible flowers in the top, and some kind of fancy cream cheese frosting. Maybe the top tier is red velvet. And all sorts of lovely, delicious things in this life of this person that we sit with. And why do they bring us joy in sitting with them? Because they've fulfilled their farad for a long time. And they've added to that plain cake, nawafil, tahajjud, duha, awabin, sadaqah, siyam, goodness. Not just the duties to people, but doing really good things for people. Helping them and uplifting them and finding ways to make their lives better. And really spending time on that and thought and strategy even to think, how can I make so-and-so's life better? What can I do for this person over here? How can I make sure that I'm always praying tahajjud? And tahajjud is the keystone habit for Muslims. If you are missing farad prayers, don't start by planning to make your farad prayers. This is my opinion. I guess it's my prescription. If you're a person who's missing your fard prayers, start by praying tahajjud. Because when you start praying tahajjud, everything else falls into place. All those prayers will fall into place. If you're praying tahajjud, you're not missing fajr. And if you're praying tahajjud, you're not gonna miss dhuhr. You're like, I prayed tahajjud, I have to pray dhuhr. And if you pray tahajjud, you're not gonna miss any of them. You're gonna pray them all. And then the next day, and that's winter now, alhamdulillah. It's so much nicer to give this talk in the winter. Because people can actually think, yeah, I can wake up 5 minutes. What time is fajr around here? 6? Oh, it's so early. In Minnesota, it's 6:30. Oh, are we changing the time next week? Okay, we have 1 week. Where if Fajr is at 6 o'clock, and you can literally wake up at 5:45, run to the bathroom, make wudu, and pray 2 rak'ahs before Fajr, and be counted as a person of tahajjud. One of the tabi'een said that the world looks to the angels when their people are praying tahajjud in their homes. The world looks to the angels like stars. The homes of the people who pray tahajjud are like stars on the earth. Like we look up at the night and see the stars. When the angels look at the earth, when we have people that pray tahajjud, it's an earth that is sparkling. That's a pretty sad thing, isn't it? What do you think the earth is looking like these days for the angels? As it looks around the earth, how many homes are sparkling at night? How many neighborhoods have clusters of stars? Are we just lone stars popping in a few places across the earth? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam that in the praying of tahajjud is being raised to maqam and mahmuda, to a praiseworthy status. The Muslim Ummah today is it's definitely partially our fault, but we've also, we've got Islamophobia and a million other reasons to say that our status as Muslims is really not that great right now, as we all know. But if we want to just step away for a minute from the Islamophobia, Donald Trump, and all those other fun things, we can really recognize that are we a people of tahajjud? Are we a people that are praying at night such that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise us to a place of maqam and mahmuda, to a place of an elevated praiseworthy status? This is who we were, but it's not who we are. And so in the road to inner joy, if we begin with this fard, knowing we have to pray the fard, I promise you, and you just try me out, I promise you, if you get 21 days without a missed fard, you're going to feel different on the inside. 40, 50, 60, 90, without a missed fard, you're going to feel differently on the inside. And if you add to that tahajjud, you will begin to change how you feel about being a Muslim. You'll begin to change how you feel about being a human being in your life situation. We all have different life situations, and some of them are really hard. But those difficult life situations, they become, and there's like a bubble. It's like you have a bubble around you that protects you from the difficulties. You're still dealing with it, and you're still handling it, and you're still managing it, and you're still maybe hurting from it, and there's pain. But there's a different kind of pain when it's couched in the joy of tahajjud and fulfilling the fard to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a fard, it's an obligation. It's not a suggestion. It's not a map. It's not a curriculum. It's not a possibility. It's a fard. It's something that we have to do. And so if you think about yourself as a boss, anyone here a boss or a manager of a place? Not that many? Okay. Teacher in a classroom? That's a boss. Okay, that's a boss for sure. Okay, mom, dad, yeah? Okay, so you've got your situation where your kid messed up his room, took all the clothes out of his drawer, and he's 7, so he knows how to put them back in. And you go in there and you say, you gotta put your clothes back. Gotta put your clothes back. Okay, if you don't put your clothes back, you're not gonna have dessert. Okay, if you don't put your clothes back, I'm taking all the clothes away. Or whatever it is that you are doing with your children who don't want to listen to you. And in the end, you're just going to be like, fine. And you'll fold those clothes up and put them back in the drawer. No, maybe not all of you. I saw some of you going, not me. Okay, mashallah. You only have one child, I see. But But you put them back, khalas, you're done. But yani, how are you feeling about this kid right now? You're really irritated. And then he comes and he says, Mommy, I want ice cream. You're like, I want clothes back in the drawer. I mean, that's how you feel. You're irritated and you're a human being. And these feelings, I feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us about where we are with Him in our experiences with people around us. So when we're not putting our clothes back in the drawer, when we're throwing our clothes all over the place, and that's when you miss a farad, it's like you're taking your sin and you're throwing it all around you. Smelly garbage. And like the smell of a person who misses a farad prayer, it's not a pleasant smell. You don't smell the same to the angels as you smell if you're fulfilling your prayers. And if you're a person who takes a shower, everyone here take showers? So like, I'm assuming you care about how you smell to people around you. We have to care how we smell to the angels. We have to care how what we're doing in this world and the places that are around us. And this farad prayer is something that brings us, it doesn't maybe bring you joy at the moment, because some of you may be saying, I don't get it. Like, I don't really enjoy it that much. It's just ritual for me. That's all right, man, just do the ritual. It's not about, you don't have to feel it every time. It's not a romantic movie. It's just a prayer. And it's okay if it feels like nothing. Because it's going to feel worse if you're not doing it. There's going to be a deadening of the heart and a deadening of the feelings if you're not doing the farad prayer. And so if we want to talk about our community doing nawafil and extra things and the ya'ab shum alayna, shame on us, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us something that can uplift entire communities and the global village, so to speak. We're not ready to do that because we have yet to uplift ourselves. We have yet to be a people who can say that we have a full year where we haven't missed the Fajr prayer more than 1 or 2 people in a community. La ilaha illallah. So how do we face the Prophet ﷺ like this? How do we tell him about how we are carrying forth his message? How do we talk about when we have doubts, right? We have all these problems and doubts and issues in our community, and we're all like, angry and all this stuff. That's great, but if we're not praying Fajr, all of that is secondary. Because it's not important right now. We have to be a people of Fajr. We have to be a people who pray Fajr on time. We have to be a people who pray all of our prayers on time. And until we become that person, that state of inner joy is not happening. And you all know I'm right because you know what it feels like on the day that you miss it. You know how you feel dead. There's just a deadening of your senses. Yeah, because there's a connection between the spiritual self and the physical self. And that's what this whole hadith is about. Seeing with the eyes of Allah, what does it mean? It means seeing with the inspiration, seeing with light, seeing things, understanding things. The veil becomes thinned. What does it mean to walk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What does that mean? It means to have to be able to do things quickly. In the olden times they called these people the people of Ahl al-Khutwa. Everyone's Ahl al-Khutwa today because we have airplanes, mashallah. But the ability to do things quickly and get things done. What does it mean to work with the hand of God? It means be able to get stuff done, get it done. It's not a mystery, and it's not a under the covers detective novel. It's very simple, but it's the start. All of that is a far off dream if we're not going to do the farad first. Inshallah, if we're talking about the path to inner joy, I'm going to stop talking now so you can ask questions. But if we're talking about the path to inner joy, and we really want inner joy, we have to stop fooling ourselves. Because we can pretend, and we can listen to poetry, and we can listen to music, and we can eat pie and cake and drink all different specialty coffees and go see our old friends and go visit the person we miss and take some me time and go to the spa and do all the list. There's a whole list. We're in a time where there's a list of things that the world around us gives us so that we can find happiness again. I'm telling you, you won't find it until the farad is fulfilled between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever you can do, all of those things, you're not going to find it. The farad has to be fulfilled, and if you really want to find joy, then we start with the nawafil. And it's not always going to be easy, but we start there and we grow. Tahajjud, duha, awabin, sunnat, furud, and the sunnahs around the asr prayers. the dhikr of the morning, the dhikr of the evening, awrad, all the stuff that you all know already about. But if we're talking about awrad out here, and we still haven't taken care of our furud, and we're missing out on a piece of joy of this dunya, to be of the su'ada ad-darain, that it is really unfortunate to miss out on, because we need to be part of that so we can bring that joy to the rest of the world and all of the communities around us. Sallallahu alayhi wa Muhammad. Yalla haji. Alhamdulillah. Do we want, what? I didn't really know what my time frame was, so let's do questions. I talked for a long time. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Anse. Are there any questions or comments anyone wants to make? Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah al-khair and welcome to Ottawa.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah, I'm okay with the fara'id, alhamdulillah. But honestly, I've been struggling so much when I started being a mom and having kids, and I barely sleep. This 8-hour thing is like a dream that never comes true.
Stop dreaming about it.
I should get realistic. So now, like, I honestly barely sleep through the night. I have a little one. And since I became a mom, like, it's very hard to commit to tahajjud. Like, I've tried with my sisters doing circles, people calling me and stuff, but it's really hard. And now hearing, like, every time I hear a lecture or anything, like, I get so excited, then I try, then it's, and subhanAllah. So if you can give me tips.
Tips.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, every single day when you miss it, you ask yourself the question, if I had an airplane ticket, would I have made it on time? And for everyone, it doesn't matter when the airplane, if you're leaving at 4 a.m, you're gonna be there. Because you paid for it. You value it. You value that plane ticket. And also as a new mom, I mean, if you're gonna be like, I'm just really tired, you can just cry. No, I do get up. Of course you do. I know you do, because you value that, you value that responsibility, if you will. You're not just gonna let you're not, I mean, no mom is gonna, unless they're like schooled by someone in the 1950s, but like, no mom is like, oh, you can just cry. I don't care. Like, if they're leaving their baby to cry, it's because someone has told them they should do that for some reason. It's not, and they're dying. They're just suffering through the whole thing. So that's not gonna happen either. So when we're waking up to nurse and care for babies and take them to the bathroom and all the other things that kids do for the first 15 years of their lives, so sorry. And if we would buy a plane ticket, and no matter what time that plane ticket was, we would get up and we would go to that and be on time for that flight. If that's the state we're in, then we really have to ask ourselves, where is our aqeedah around tahajjud? Do we really believe in its value? And I would say that probably you don't yet. You haven't seen the benefit of it yet. So you need to give yourself an opportunity to have an experience where you can see and feel the benefit of that. And the only way you can do that is by forcing yourself to do it. It's like did you gain a lot of weight when you were pregnant? Okay, so think about your 9th month. Were you like just dying to give birth? Yeah, because you were fat, okay? So, and heavy, like you were heavier than you'd ever been in your life, and you like had to drag yourself around, your knees were going, this is too much, and I can't even believe this, oh my God, when am I gonna be done with this? And alhamdulillah, you know, for that feeling, because that you're willing to go through labor and delivery, right? But what I wanna say is that if that wasn't a baby, like if you were just fat and you would probably do anything to get rid of it, because especially if it had come out that quickly, because you would remember what it was like not to be fat, right? And because you would value and remember what it felt like. So you would be willing to like quit eating and change your lifestyle and change all this stuff to go back to that, even though it would be really, really hard. And so tahajjud is something that unless you've given yourself the opportunity to experience it, it will be difficult to commit to. Because it's a change. And if you started out that thing, you in particular started it out by saying, I'm okay with my furud, that means you have an aqeedah of fajr. You believe in the importance of it, alhamdulillah. You believe in the importance of fajr. So you're like, I mean, it doesn't matter if the baby is crying, it doesn't matter if, I don't know, is it a she or a he? If he just, you know, made a big mess on the floor somewhere, or whatever. Like there's 10 minutes of Fajr, you're praying it, and you're like, just a minute. So when that aqeedah for tahajjud equals the aqeedah for Fajr, you'll stop missing it. And you won't need other people to call you and this and that, because it will be as important to you as the Fajr prayer. Inshallah. Here, take this one. I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
جزاك الله خيرا.
وإياك أنا.
Earlier you spoke about your research in leadership.
Sorry, the what? My research and leadership.
Yeah. Is it religious leadership or just in general?
My research?
Yeah.
The research I was talking about was general research in leadership, especially in digital cultures. I'm doing some research in religious leadership, but it's really mostly qualitative work.
Yeah. Is it possible to tell us briefly about leadership in Quranic perspective or followership leadership?
I don't think that I'm at the stage where I can do that from a point of expertise. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think I can. I'm sorry. Probably had you asked me that last year, I would have been like, sure. But because I've spent this last year really thinking very deeply about leadership, and that's what my doctorate is in, I feel less, you know how now I feel less, like I'm not quite ready to do that. Sorry.
Yeah. Like nowadays in Muslim world, if you see that the study of leadership is like very few people they study this matter, and I hope that one day there will be a center like Islamic leadership, Islamic leadership center, that it can benefit the Muslims, and especially there are like lack of knowledge in Islamic leadership, and especially in Quranic perspective, as we have more than 1,200 verses related to the subject. But like I have noticed, like in the Muslim world, it is almost ignored, and especially another subject which is followership. Like followership, which is now I think in Harvard University they have followership department. And that will be interesting if you are just focused on this matter and you make more research. And thank you very much.
Yeah, inshallah. It's a fascinating field, and it's especially a fascinating field as a Muslim woman. So, inshallah. Inshallah. Questions, comments? In the introvert world, Anse Shahnaz, you have to kind of be quiet for 30 seconds, so all the introverts have opportunity to get brave. So, and you stare at them with silence. Didn't work.
So I want to ask a question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who feels that maybe that even catching a plane is out of their realm, or they just feel that they don't have any discipline, and they maybe talk to themselves like that, like I'm lazy, I don't have discipline, I don't know how I'll ever get to being that kind of person who values these things?
I mean, I have yet to meet someone who has zero discipline. That's an internal rhetoric, and I would say two things. One is, if it's really serious, then some therapy may be in order, because those kinds of really dark inner voices, everyone has some discipline. I mean, you eat breakfast. I asked if everyone took a shower, and they're all like, yeah. So, I mean, that by itself is an amount of discipline that not everyone has. So I think that if there's real dark feelings about I don't have discipline, that does need a therapist to sort of explore why the inner dialogue is so negative. But spiritually, the self-discipline is something that we work on, and we don't expect to have it right away. We expect to work on it and grow with it, and be able to look back 5-10 years from now and say, alhamdulillah, I've really grown, I've really changed.
You mentioned earlier, sorry. First of all, Jazakallah khair. It's really a pleasure to finally meet you, mashallah. You mentioned earlier that we needed to, our aqidah for tahajjud or for nawafil has to reach that of fajr. How would you say, like, how can somebody reach that? Is it through ilm? How does a person attain that aqidah?
I think there are 3 things that we need, and you're right, I did say that, but I'm going to correct myself a little bit. It's never going to be exactly the same, because we're always going to remember that a fard is always stronger than nawafil. But once we realize how we're benefiting from nawafil, it becomes that place where we don't want to miss it, as we don't want to miss the fard. But I would say 3 things. One is definitely ilm, like reading about that particular prayer, that particular thing that we want to be motivated to do. Living with someone who lives with that habit for a while is life-changing, even if it's just for a month or a week or even a weekend, I would say. But living with someone who is a regular tahajjud prayer, I would say anyone who has had that experience knows what I'm talking about, that it just changes how you feel about prayer and what you believe about yourself that you can do. And we have this game called Pilgrims at Home, and it's a really tough, we play it during the days of Hajj, for those who are not at Hajj. And it's a very tough schedule. Like, it's not a joke. You've played it, I see. Yeah, so I mean, I designed the schedule and put all the points, and every single thing that has points, like, there's method to my madness. And so like Surah Al-Baqarah, for example, if you read it in the day, it's worth, how many? 15 points. So the first juz' is worth 5, the second 7, and the third, no, have you seen 8, 6, 3, something, whatever. Like, each juz' has its own point system to get you to finish the darn thing, okay? So, astaghfirullah, I shouldn't say that, like, about Surah Al-Baqarah, but, and you get what I'm saying, to really encourage. And every time people play this game, they write to us, especially the newbies, and they say, I never in my life imagined that I would be a person who could do that much ibadah in the day. But and it's because it's only 10 days, right? So you're saying to yourself, I can do this for 10 days. And they're blessed days, so there's good reason to do extra ibadah in those days. And it's a game, and it's a team, and so you're helping other people, and we like to do things for other people. There's a million reasons. But that experience of experiencing that extra worship, almost everyone who plays holds on to something. This is it's not always tahajjud, but each person holds on to something from that game. And so that's the third thing, it's experience. And I guess that's kind of like the second one, but it's different. Like, the second one is really living with someone who loves tahajjud. But the third one is really experiencing it yourself. And the Pilgrims at Home game, I've really seen life changes in people who do that it's 10 days. So you can do it for 10 days. And it really makes a difference. So I said ilm and living with someone and real life experience. Yeah. Can you come? It's not going to reach you. Don't be shy.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, actually I have kind of 2 questions. No, not kind of, but I have 2 questions. My first question is, like, people oftentimes says, well, I want to do my prayers and I've tried and blah, 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 but it's like, I just don't feel it. I don't feel like it's really doing anything for me. Like, I mean, I've had like people saying this to me. So what would you say, like to these people? And then the second question is about not missing, like the thought prayers. For example, in a climate like in Quebec, especially again and again, it's always turning around. The same thing where, they're doing their political campaigns around, like changing, like the religious signs and then putting laws and this and that. Anyway, we're just going around and around always. And it makes, like the climate really negative, And, like we were talking about how you cannot really speak about politics or religion, like with people. But, like, and that is true, I think, mostly anywhere. But in Quebec, it's really terrible, And so, like, I mean, people, they work somewhere, like, and then it's hard. It's hard to really do the prayers on time because, like, you always have to face these people that are not Muslim, that are, like, I mean, I will do, like, sometimes, like, I'll go in the parking lot, like, in the corner of the parking lot, I'll open the car, the car door, and I'll just put my praying carpets and everything. But all the time I'm wondering, okay, when is it that I'm gonna get something on my head, like, because people, like, they're so angry, like I don't see how it hurts them, but it's just it's a climate and it's really negative, and a lot of people are afraid, So, what are your suggestions about that?
To the first question of, for those who will say to us, well, I'm praying, but I don't really feel it. First of all, they're not really, I mean, they're missing a lot of prayers. Because to get to that point where you're saying, I'm not feeling it, it's really rare that that person is really fulfilling those farad prayers on a regular basis. I would say to them, though, well, don't give up. Because it's not, we don't pray to feel. Like, our goal in praying is not to feel close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a gift when it comes, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to fulfill our obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our pillar of our faith, which is salah. And so we do it whether we feel anything or not. And I would probably guess that for most Muslims, most of those prayers are not feeling really, so this definition of spirituality in their prayers, that those gifts come once in a while. And when they come, alhamdulillah, you hold on to them, and you hopefully would love to have more of that. But we don't pray to feel. We pray to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He deserves to be worshipped, not because we deserve to have a feeling because of our prayer. And the second one around fear, I travel a lot, as you know, and so I pray in airports all around the world. And airports are, of course, a uniquely exciting place to pray. And I traveled this year on 9/11 from the United States to the UK. My ticket was made for. And I went to pray, and in a place, it was actually in Minneapolis, and I was praying in a place, I pray there all the time, like the place that I kind of pray, like it's my little mosque place. It's not really a mosque, it's just a place that I chose. And that time, I started praying, and I literally had a guy come and like stand there watching me the whole time. And I think it was just because it was the date and whatever. But I'm telling the story because generally I really don't feel any sense of trepidation when I pray. I'm like, eh. But that day I did feel, my kids were like, Mama, be careful, Mama, blah, so they had me all worked up. But, and yet it was fine, you know what I mean? So I think generally, lots of times, I think we have to ask ourselves, first of all, why am I afraid? Yes, there is a tension in the air, and yes, like yesterday in the United States, a synagogue was shot up, and really bad things are happening. But those bad things are not happening because we're praying; they're happening because other people are instigating hate in the world. And so for each place that we are praying, or each time that we have to pray, I would certainly suggest that we are intelligent and wise and we choose places to pray that are less conspicuous if possible. I think that's intelligent, and that's tying the camel, so to speak. But I don't think we choose not to pray because we are afraid. That we find some way or some room, some hallway, some stairwell to pray in where, okay, people won't see us, but we're fulfilling our obligation. There's something about fulfilling that obligation that is not only nourishing but necessary. And in that space, if we're feeling afraid, we can ask ourselves, like, why am I, has anything bad ever happened to me in this space? You know, alhamdulillah, if it hasn't, and we've prayed over 100 times outside of the house, odds are you will continue to not have anything bad happen to you. And it's a trick of shaitan to come and find any way to make us quit praying. I mean, that's have you read C.S. Lewis, The Screw Tape Letters? It's a great book. It's a Christian book, FYI. But it's a great book because it's all about how shaitan tries to do anything to, it's a novel, how to do anything to take someone away from God in this particular book. And there's a truth there that is anything just to get it, whether it's to be afraid, whether it's to pray, oh, I shouldn't pray here because it's not clean. You know? I mean, it's just anything. It's too cold, it's too exposed, it's too hidden, it's too, I don't know, like there's all sorts of things that people will tell you or tell themselves because they feel nervous about it. And I do think that we are intelligent beings, and we should definitely, I mean, most of the time, sometimes I'm just in a mood, I'm like, I'm just gonna pray here. So like when I was at university, at the university I'm in now, I'm not taking classes anymore because I'm in dissertation stage, but there was one time I was walking in the hallway and there were these, I'm sorry, but there were these, a young couple sitting on the couch inappropriately. And I was like, seriously? Like, you feel comfortable doing that and I'm gonna feel uncomfortable praying? Allahu Akbar. And it's, that's so, you know, like, what's wrong with me that I think I'm not gonna pray in the middle of this lounge? If you're doing that in this lounge, I'm praying here. But that was probably a day that I was feeling a bit feisty. Yeah, I get irritated by the way the world is, you know? Like, it's okay to be sinful, and it's okay to be secular, and it's okay to be all sorts of things, but to be a person of faith, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, that's what everyone is afraid of. And that's what everyone is ignoring. Even in the world of diversity and in the world of intersectionality, right? All the academics talk about intersectionality, and all the activists, or the intersection of my identities. And like, if you look at the list of the identities that they're talking about ethnicity, gender, race, sexuality, the kind of fruit they like to eat, but never is it their religion. It's just not part of what the academic world addresses in the intersection of identities, because we live in a secular time. So sometimes I'm feeling intellectual about that and I can talk about it, and sometimes I'm just irritated. So I just do things like pray in the middle of the lounge area. But then they said, could we help find you a place to pray? Good idea. And actually now I don't think this is really because of me, but now they have this huge, beautiful prayer space in that building. I still don't think it's because of me, but there's a little part of me that's like, yeah, because I would pray in front of people. Because I was like, fine. I didn't always do that, but 12-hour days, like, they don't always bring out the best in me. Or anyone, I suppose.
Okay, go ahead, and then Khairia. So Fatima, I think you have the mic close to you already. Or? Whoever has the mic, go ahead. Into your...
Assalamu alaikum, jazakallah khair for honoring us with your visit, Sheikh Tamara. The question I have is, like, how do you make your kids, like, love praying and motivating them all the time and just teaching them the importance
I have no
of
idea.
Salah. Yeah.
You do, I mean, my kids
Like,
are
do you have
30,
any tricks?
27, and 18. I mean, when they're, I mean, if they're like 5 and 6 and 7, no problem. You know, give them some candy or something, you know, hot chocolate. I mean, like, you know, all the stuff, you know, I don't know, like you just give them stuff and you make it, you hug them and you say, I'm so proud of you and this is so wonderful. The older they get, the harder it is. You got to get up at night and pray for them. It's not easy. It's not easy. Allah hadiyon or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yani sabbiton, yani make them firm on the path, because there's a lot out there that is dragging our children away from us and away from faith and away from from clarity. And it's not all in the secular world. Some of it, unfortunately, is within our own communities. So, alhamdulillah, I'll tell you what, one thing is a place like this and a community like this is one of the best things you can do for your children, because a place that will give them good memories and happy memories will always work for you in the future. Yeah.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. The question that I wanted to ask is about asking questions, funny enough. So I tend to ask a lot of questions, and especially when it comes to, you know, whether certain things are appropriate or not, just trying to understand really how to be a better person, a better believer, a better server. And then I was talking to a friend about it. And so I was telling her all these questions that I kept on asking and some of the answers that I was getting. She was like, you better be careful, because when you ask a lot of questions and you get answers, you know, like you're gonna be accountable for that. So be careful and don't answer the questions that you're not ready to hear the answer for. And so I started to think about it. I don't know, you get into this place where you're like, okay, I know I want the answer for this, or I need the answer for this. But because I'm not ready for it, or I don't know, and I've heard some people talk about their reasonings of, you know, I don't know if I could handle it. But sometimes it's things like, you know, that essentially are meant to bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes it's things that, you know, it's the ego getting involved or the nafs getting involved, kind of blocking us from moving forward. And so I guess my question is there a way of kind of, or are there questions that, like, should we continue to ask these questions? Or is there a way of kind of figuring out, like,
We could make a comic strip out of this question. I can see it, like, you know. It's the comic strip of asking questions about asking questions, so that we see if we can still ask questions, and we ask questions about asking those questions. It'd be great. You know, questions are either something that come from a place of real sincerity where we really want to learn, or they come from a place where we want to avoid learning. Sometimes questions come from a place where I'm going to ask this because I want to avoid learning that. And so I think you have to have some self-knowledge and some reflection on self of where are these questions coming from, and do I already have the answer to this question, but I'm looking for a new answer? Or is this something that I really want to know the answer to? I'm just not sure I really want to know. I think in the second case that those questions are beautiful, and while I do agree with your friend to a degree, I don't think the answer to that is not asking. I think that asking and knowing and then doing our best, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Wadud, al-Rahman, al-Rahim, Ghafal, al-Ghafur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not waiting somewhere for us to mess up, right? This isn't Mrs. Nicholson in second grade or whatever, like whoever your teacher was in second grade that was waiting until you messed up on your letter D, right? I mean, this is Allah, who khaliq al-musawwir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our intention and knows what we're trying to do. And we are al-insan, and we're meant to make mistakes and come back and make tawbah and keep on coming back. And there's a whole sign on the side of this building. You should go memorize it. Come back, come back, come back. What is it? It's not really what it says. It's a Rumi poem. Yeah, but it's like, you know, come on, don't worry about it. Just keep on coming back. And that's, again, that's a human, very human thing. So my complicated answer to your more complicated question is, Yes, I think asking questions is generally good as long as you have done some self-reflection and know where those questions are coming from. And that you're sure that you're not just asking questions to avoid what you already know. Because sometimes that's the case. No, I mean, in general. We just met today. I didn't. Alaikum assalam.
Sorry, just one comment to follow that, sisters, and then I have a question too, just about the prayer. I feel like it's such a testimony that, and I shared this actually with my companions on the road here, that the only place, subhanAllah, that I was ever denied to pray when I asked was at the Dead Sea, and that was a place of Allah's punishment.
Yeah.
And so it's always stayed with me, that experience, because everywhere else in the non-Muslim land that I have lived in, people have opened doors, found places for me, but only by a Muslim at the Dead Sea, subhanAllah. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was just it's always stayed with me, that's been the only place, subhanAllah. Anyways, my question was about the way that hadith, because I feel like sometimes it also plays with me as well, that is it like a linear thing? Because do you first have to establish the fard and then the nawafil? Because when we're saying to do the tahajjud, we're asking to do the nawafil first, right? So I think that's kind of, and then you get these little, like I think they are like, subhanAllah, but from, waswas or whatever, but you try and do something and then you mess up real bad, like you're bad to your mom or something, and you're like, what was the point of all that? Like that just erases all my fard or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Or it's like you pray your tarawih and it goes really late and then it's so hard and then you you can't get up for suhoor, you can't do your fard fajr, and then you're like, what was the point of that tarawih? So I just wanted a little bit of more clarification on, like, is it linear? Like, we have to get the fard first and then we do the nawafil, or we're doing it at the same time? And I don't know if it's clear, but inshallah, sunnah.
The question is clear. I don't know that there's an absolute one way or the other. I think of it like if you think of yourself in the middle of my hand, or in the middle of a piece of earth, okay? And you put around you a fence. And around that first fence around you is your furud. And then around that you put another fence, and that's your, let's say, sunnah prayers. And then around that you put another fence of nawafil. And maybe around that an extra nawafil. So each fence that you build means that you have more defense against the wolf, shaitan, or dunya, whatever it is that are your challenges. And so if one day you miss the nawafil, well, you've still got your sunnah and your farad. And then that day you also miss sunnah, well, now you have your farad. It's going to be harder to miss your farad because you're doing the rest of these things. Now, people are different in how they can grow and how they build their habits, and their practices is different. For me, I became Muslim in 1985, pre-Google, and 1 month after I was a Muslim, I moved into a house with 9 Malaysian women. And they were beautiful women of spirituality and worship, mashallah. And so the first day I was there, the very first day, we prayed Aisha. And we finished the prayer, and I took off my prayer clothes. And the Katun, her name was actually Jama'atun, but we called her Kat. For anyone here who's Malaysian, you will know why I did that. And so she was Katun, and she said, "You're not going to pray witr?" What is she talking about? I had no idea what witr was. And I couldn't pull out my phone and ask Google, what's witr, I was like, so I didn't say anything because I was 18 and I didn't like to say I don't know about anything. So I didn't say anything. She said to me, "Oh, you pray it after tahajjud?" I didn't know what tahajjud was either, but I said, "Yeah." She said, "Shall I wake you?" I said, "Yeah." MashaAllah. And so she did. Alhamdulillah. And it's like I was introduced to this very beautiful habit and practice before I even knew what I was barely praying my farad yet. I was still struggling with this really weird thing called wudu. So, alhamdulillah, right? So that's my personality. It wasn't linear at all. But, so I don't know, like I think that question partially has to do with personality, partially has to do with our growing. But I just want to say one thing about something you said, because I think it is a habit of ours to say, oh, this bad thing happened, so nothing else was worth it. I don't think that's a healthy way to talk to ourselves. I don't think it's a prophetic way to talk. We don't have anything in the seerah that says that. On the other hand, it is important to note if we miss a fajr prayer or farad prayer, it is important to reflect on our day before and say to ourselves, well, what happened? What happened that I lost the khair of this prayer? What did I do that perhaps kept me from that goodness? And that's a healthy question, as long as we don't get bogged down in it. That's a healthy question so that we can avoid such things in the future and become those people of constant furud that are always prayed on time. Inshallah.
Any other questions or comments? One more, Margaret? Okay.
You said my name so good. I just wanted to, about the question when people, they ask, I try and I don't feel, when I'm praying, I don't feel, it does anything to me and everything. There was once, like a teacher I know, a wise teacher I know, that said, not because you don't feel it, that it doesn't affect your heart. And so I just wanted to mention this because it came back to me and I thought it was important to mention it.
So, yeah. Not feeling it doesn't mean it doesn't affect your heart. Yeah. So.
Lisa? Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for everything. I think we really needed it. I wanted you to expand, if you could, on the fard of to ourselves and to others, because it's also a big part of our life. And sometimes we, the part of the fard for the prayer and the worship brought a lot of clarity to me and good reminders. But also maybe just your perspective on, through our lives we'll have different, the fard roles that we have to ourselves and to other people will change. And we don't really talk about this a lot. So maybe either your advice or where to look for more information about this. I'm sure that if I knew more about the Sirah and the life of the Prophet Muhammad and the companions, and then I would have like clear answers maybe, but just maybe a few points to guide us. Would be appreciated.
That can be a long, I can talk for a long time about that, and I'm not going to, don't worry those who are saying, please don't. I think what I'll say is that the seasons of life are reflected by who we're responsible for, what we're responsible for. And each of us kind of knows, like if I say to you, what are you responsible for? Everyone has sort of an answer that comes to them, and that's generally the right answer. And so what you feel responsible for is generally what you are responsible for. And so if you are not fulfilling your duty to that particular thing, then that will affect your ability to grow and affect your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's just say, for example, let's say you run Lotus, okay? This is so you're in charge of that. So that means that you're here first, and you leave last, and you make sure that everything is done, and you are watching over that, and like deciding that okay, I should have maybe done a different example. Sorry, that was probably too real, but let's say you're in charge of Daybreak Books, okay? My bookstore. And so daybreak books. So that means that if you're in charge of that, you know what's happening in this store, and you're making sure that it's clean, and you're making sure that that the books are reordered, and all this stuff. And the day that you say to yourself, "Oh, nobody really knows," or "It's okay," or "It's not that important," is the day that you really have to say, "Whoa, what happened? What's happening to my feeling of that responsibility that I've been given? I'm responsible for this thing." And so that is applicable, or let's say analogous to almost anything else in life, where you are the one who's responsible. And we're all responsible for something, whether it's our stuff, like just our stuff. Are we taking care of our stuff? There's the sunnah of how we treat our stuff, our clothes and our bags and our things. And I mean, I know I already heard like there's some activists here, environmental activists and things like that. That's certainly part of it, but we don't even have to go that big. We can just stay really small in our own circle of things, and how we as Muslims, as good as the people of ma'ruf and munkar, are supposed to interact with even just our basic things that we have, and being responsible for not being wasteful and etc. So I think as long as we're being generally careful, we're fine. It's when we become very extravagant in our action, or very lazy in our lack of action, that this stuff begins to come back to us, and it begins to affect how we feel even in our Quran reading and things like this.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry. Yeah, we've seen that we all know, or we have known someone, or maybe it's even us, who have missed, or who regularly miss a fard. But we also know, or have known, people who don't miss a single prayer at the mosque, but still, unfortunately, we see that they're like terrible to people, that they're backbite, and they cheat on people and lie, and I guess as some ulama or scholars have said, like if prayer doesn't help clean your heart, so that your tongue is purer, I guess we also have to question our relationship to prayer, and also question how our heart has been hardened to the level that prayer doesn't have any effect. And I guess, like as ulama have said, like the impact of prayer should be reflected through our relationship to people and how we treat people. Because yeah, like there are examples of people who don't miss a single fard, but still, subhanAllah, they're terrible to other people and unfair. And
yeah, and so I mean, how can that happen? We can ask ourselves. Oftentimes it happens because the prayer is being prayed because of the people that are there watching them pray. Right? It's about going because other people are in the mosque. And that's a terrible, sad situation. It's a terrible situation that we are definitely plagued with, as every other community is, but which is hypocrisy. I mean, Allah protect us all from hypocrisy, because there's a blind spot in that type of hypocrisy you're talking about, where arrogance comes in and look at me, look what I'm doing. And we begin to shortchange the people that we're supposed to be good to, and that's another way that we shortchange ourselves, really, and shortchange our whole community. So, yeah. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Habibina Muhammad.
Bismillah. So thank you so much, Anse, and thank you everyone for coming. We have just one more thing that we wanted to do. So first of all, I failed to mention something very important, that Anse is the director and founder of 3 different projects at least, but things you can find online. So rabata.org, it's an organization for Muslim women to promote women's scholarship and to support women re-entering and getting back into knowledge and getting back into
positive cultural change
through
creative educational experiences.
And Daybreak Press, which Anse mentioned, and Ribat is an educational institution that gives online classes, and you can go very, very high in that, all the way up to getting an ijaza. inshallah, traditional certificate and degree. And so you can find out more. We can give you the links for those things, inshallah. And the books that you see on the table, for anyone who wasn't here earlier, these are books published by Daybreak Press. One is an award-winning book written by Anse Tamara Gray. The other one is a seerah, a classic of the biography of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's Anse Tamara, and two other teachers have just finished translating into English. And the other book is A Crowning Venture about Dr. Saadia, is she here? Her journey of memorizing Quran and the stories of other women who have accomplished this beautiful crowning venture. And these are all published by Daybreak Press. And if you want to get them, if you want to buy one and you want to get it signed, these few days are your opportunity to do that and to tell other people. And we have, alhamdulillah, one more event tomorrow, which is a public talk about spiritual activism at St. Paul University. It's a collaboration with St. Paul. Also, the Islamic Care Center is part of the collaboration. So it's a beautiful cooperation amongst different institutions. And that will be at 7 p.m. at St. Paul at the amphitheater. And please invite anyone you want. It's open to everyone, inshallah. Let other people know about the positive experience you had today, inshallah. And before we finish, we wanted to ask Sidi Yusuf to sing a song for us.
Yeah.
Anse requested that.
Yes. Hello. Assalamu alaikum. He left the building, I think. Did someone back there let him know that he's being paged? He left? Yeah, I know, but. Not today? Tomorrow?
He said he'd do it privately for you only.
Okay. Okay, he has 24 hours. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, inshallah. All right.
So just to thank you, Anse, we have Noor who just wanted to present a gift from all of us. It's just something small, but it's a memento of joy from a time before you even wrote this book, but it's something that...
Very appropriate.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's something nostalgic for me anyway, the smell of it and the memory of it.
I think I know what it is. I want to know. Because didn't you bring me this in like 1995 or something? Happy.
You once said that you really like that scent, and subhanAllah, it's just something nostalgic, and it's also a memory of how Ante taught us to really make something special out of the prayer when we pray, to use perfume and to put perfume in the air and all of that. So it just seemed that it could only be that we could give you. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure to be with you here tonight.
Yeah, of course.
Somebody else there, look. Will somebody close us with dua, please?
Just close the door before the other.
Bismillah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad fil awwaleen wa salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad fil akhirin wa salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad fil ala ila yawmiddin. Ya Allah, we thank you for everything that you've given us, these bounties that we are attempting to receive with the proper adab and the proper thankfulness, and definitely these blessings that we do not deserve. And we thank you for your generosity, and we thank you for everything that you've given us. We thank you for the blessing of teachers who care and who translate all that they've been given and put their love and their care and their concern in all that they do in upholding the message of your message and of the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in trying to honor that and pass it on to those around them. And we're so thankful that we have our teacher Anse Tamara, I'm trying, and Shehnaz, and our teachers Sheikh Hamdi and his teacher Sheikh Habib Umar. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us amongst those who receive this knowledge with thankfulness, with shukr, with gratefulness, with ta'zeem, with loving and joyful hearts. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to find the joy that you've put everywhere in this religion. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to be among the people who've experienced it, to learn more about those who have experienced it, and to inshallah for us to experience it ourselves. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our ties to the beautiful tradition that has come to us and that you have protected from the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam until now. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're able to find the beauty and the joy and the strength in that tradition. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to ourselves be those who receive and translate it in our own contexts, in our own struggles, in our own joys, in our own sadness, in our own yearning, in our own longing, in our wayfaring, and our own returning back to you, Ya Allah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to connect us with a firm and unwavering connection to you, Ya Allah, and to your Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He connects us to those who are connected to you, Ya Allah, and to His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the love of you and your Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam be that strong pillar in our lives, and be that pole, and be that ground, and be that strong foundation upon which we build. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He doesn't allow us to become deluded in our own delusions and be consumed in our own selves. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to continue to benefit from the blessings that He's placed around us, and that we don't take these things lightly. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He fills our lives with love and peace and joy. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give that to all those around us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate the suffering of those all around us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us pure, complete and deep healing for all the sicknesses that we might have. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless those who brought us here, from our own parents, from our own friends, from our teachers, and so on. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we allow us to become people who bring more people to these places of dhikr and of gathering, of remembrance, of yearning, of love. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He protects us and the generations to come, our children, our great-grandchildren. May they grow up to become true lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and joyful standard bearers of the banner of Islam. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to empower his connection to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and nourish that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To do that for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for his family and all those who follow his way. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslima kathira. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim. Barakallahu feekum.
الله يا الله الله يا رب Allah ya Allah, Allah ya Kareem. Of you, my Lord, I'm asking the gaze of your